Apple has been in kind of a rut recently. I mean, they've always been in kind of a rut ever since they perfected the iPhone. Because let's be honest, they perfected this thing at like iPhone 11. It really has not changed much from iPhone 11. And the only thing people would want back, I think at this point, would be the headphone jack. Because yeah, it's honestly just inconvenient. It's not really that big of a deal anymore because most headphones are wireless now, but it still is just inconvenient to not have a headphone jack on my phone. There are times where it'd be helpful and useful to have, but I don't have it. It's not the end of the world, but yeah, it's still annoying. I would prefer to have it, especially since there's like an empty gap in every iPhone just for the headphone jack. Like, it could definitely fit in there. It's not an issue. But there's some rumors about the iPhone 16 and 17 because there always is. There is always a lot of leaks from Apple products because they're desirable products and people leak them. And the iPhone 16 rumors are basically the same thing Apple always does. It's like a slightly different phone. The normal version of the Pro phone is going to be like slightly smaller, and then the bigger version, the Max, is going to be slightly bigger. It's really not that big of a deal. Like, the change up from 15 to 16 will basically be nothing, as it usually is. The bigger changes are coming to the iPhone 17. So 2025's iPhone, not this year's. But these changes are, like, in my opinion, not great. It's not the worst thing in the world, and you're not going to have to worry about it for a while. But Apple will reportedly be launching a iPhone Air, or like a thin iPhone, if you want to call it that. It's just a thinner iPhone, and it's being dubbed the iPhone Air. And these leaks come from Mark Gurman, and Mark Gurman is usually right about this kind of stuff, so I would expect this to actually come out and be real. And as of now, this thing won't replace any of the current iPhones. It won't replace the Pro or the normal one. It will be like an in-betweener. But if they do end up releasing this thing, I'm kind of hoping it doesn't do well, because we don't need slimmer phones. I'm sorry. If this phone does well, they're gonna make every other phone really slim, and they're just gonna be worse phones. Like, phones are already pretty thin. I really don't need a thinner phone. I want a bigger battery. I want a battery that's gonna last longer. Like, phones are already pretty thin. I really don't need a thinner phone. I really just want a battery that lasts longer and a phone that's more durable. That's really all I'm asking for. I don't want a slimmer phone. Does anyone really want a slimmer phone? They might think they want one, but do they actually want one when that results in 25% less battery life? I don't think so. And let's say in the future, the iPhone 17 Slim, or Air, or whatever you want to call it, has the same battery life as the current big model, right? If that's the case, why not just make the phone the same size and have longer battery? Please, why? Why not just make the phone the same size and give it more battery life? Is it a problem? Is it a crime? Can we go back to the battery life wars, please? Because these phones are dying quicker and quicker now. Like, it's generally pretty good, and it's better than the early 2000s was. But, like, come on, please, just give me bigger batteries. Please, for the love of God, that's all I want. If my phone could last more than 48 hours, we're good, okay? But it can't do that. It can barely hit 24. And I don't even use it that much. Realistically, a slimmer iPhone is fine, assuming it doesn't interfere with the other product lines. But, like, I feel like it's gonna interfere. If it does really well, they're just gonna make them all super thin. And then everyone's gonna complain about battery life again, and they're gonna make them thicker again. It just seems kind of stupid. Like, the size difference between a normal iPhone 15 and the supposed Slim Air would be like literally 3 millimeters. What is the point? What is the point if your battery life is gonna be worse? And to be fair, we don't know if it's gonna be worse, right? But the way I see it is if you can make it fit in a smaller form factor and the battery life is the same, you could just keep it in the bigger form factor and give it more battery life. Is that an insane thing to think? Because, like, batteries take up like a physical amount of size, right? So if you have a bigger battery, you have more battery life. Is this a crazy thing to think? And if you make the phone thinner instead of smaller, you're actually using more battery life with a smaller battery because the screen's still the same size, and that uses most of your power. It just feels like we've done this before, and we realized it was kind of stupid. And, like, also, Apple's not good at making thin devices. Every time they've made a thin device, it's broken way easier than everything else. The iPhone 16 had Bengate. The iPad Airs, you could rip them like paper pretty much. Like, a thin device does not equal a good device. And it just feels like we've been through this whole thing, and we realized it was kind of stupid, and phones were like fine. Like, they were a fine size. I really don't think they have to get thinner. And also, something we don't think about a lot with phones, what if it just starts overheating all the time? Because if it's thinner, there's less area for heat to get out, I guess, or be absorbed. So if it has the same processor as a bigger phone, is it gonna overheat more? I feel like it could. The MacBook Airs are like notorious for overheating, at least the older versions are. So yeah, I would kind of expect it to overheat a little bit. Yeah, an iPhone Air just seems like a bad idea. But there's another phone that Apple is reportedly working on that should release around the same time, and that is the iPhone Foldable, and I very much like this idea. Now, this is a biased video, okay? If you like thin phones, you're obviously gonna disagree with me, and that's fine, okay? They're phones, they're stupid things, we can argue about them. But yeah, a flippable iPhone, I'm here for that, baby, okay? Give me a flippable iPhone. I just like flipping phones. I think they're cool. If I had a flipping iPhone, I would fidget with it all day. Please, give me a folding iPhone. I am so okay with this. I do not care if it's worse in every single way. Just give me a folding iPhone. At least then we're innovating, okay? Thin stuff? We've had thin stuff forever. We realized it was bad, okay? But a folding phone that's twice as thick as your normal phone, that is innovation. Please, make the folding iPhone, Apple. Do it. It is your calling. Oh yeah, and I forgot to mention, apparently Apple does just want to make all of their phones slim like this in the future. So yeah, this will trickle down to other phones and make them worse potentially. Because yeah, if you make the battery smaller to fit it in a smaller device, it's gonna be worse. It's gonna be a worse phone. And not only that, okay, holding a thin phone kinda sucks. Everyone already has like a pop socket or something now, so clearly they're not being made in a way that people can actually hold them with one hand, at least a lot of people. It's also a little weird they're hedging their bets on a thin iPhone because they report themselves that the iPhone mini or the Plus models didn't do that well, which the Plus model thing kind of surprises me, but at the same time it doesn't. I only have a plus size phone because I'm a huge person, and my iPhone, whatever Max phone, looks like a normal phone in my hands. Outside of my hands though, it's huge, okay? It's a huge phone. So I get why people want like the normal size phone, but making it slimmer is not gonna help with that problem. If anything, it's gonna make it worse for people because the reason they're not getting the big phones is because they can't use them with one hand. And a slimmer phone is gonna make that harder to do. I just kind of don't get it. And it's like, it could be fine. Maybe the battery life and performance will be the same, or at least identical, and no one's really gonna care. But at the same time, I feel like that's not gonna be the case. If you make it smaller, the battery's gonna be physically smaller. I think this phone's just gonna be worse. It's either gonna be the same in terms of battery life, which means it's worse. Because if they can match the battery life with the older phone with a newer, thinner version, that just means a thicker version would have had a better battery life. Or the battery life is just gonna actually be worse. That is a possibility. And like, I get it from Apple's perspective or like Samsung's perspective. I get it. Phones have kind of reached their maximum potential. There's not much you can innovate on when the entire thing is a screen now. But there are some things that like on an iPhone, like for example, a way to get rid of the island, the stupid thing in the middle. That'd be pretty cool. I think everyone would like that. Or a fingerprint sensor that goes under the screen. I think everyone would like that. I think everyone has the experience of using Face ID and then also having glasses on and it just not working. I think it's happened to everyone with an iPhone at some point. So yeah, there's some things Apple could do to make their phone just like better, but they don't do it. Like personally, I'd much rather have them get rid of the dynamic island than like make a slimmer phone. That's like the last thing I actually care about. And I feel like it's like the last thing most people actually care about. Like yeah, if you tell someone it's thinner now, that's like cool, that's like nice. It's like, oh, it's a thinner phone now. But like, if you told them all the drawbacks they had to endure to make the phone thinner, I think they would not care that the phone was thinner. I think they'd be like, you know what, I want the thicker version back. Because yeah, it really is not a lot they're shaving off here. It's literally 3 millimeters. Like that's the amount they're shaving off here. And I feel like all that does is make the phone worse. I could be wrong, okay? It's a possibility. But the last time they had super thin phones, they broke all the time. In the middle. I just really don't get it. Personally, I want the foldable phone because I like weird things and foldable phones I think are cool, but that's like a personal thing. I just don't think many people care about the phone being thinner, but I could be totally wrong about that. Maybe it is like the biggest complaint. Maybe Apple does like a survey and it's like, hey, what do you want your iPhone to be? And everyone says thinner. Maybe that's the case. Either way, we'll see, I guess. But what do you think? Let me know in the comments down below. Like and subscribe if you're new. Follow me on Twitter @spatnz1 and click the ads to check out more of my content and have a good one.